Season of Discovery Phase 3 is here, and I'm going to show you absolutely everything you need to know to hit the ground running as an arms warrior. Let's start off with the stat priority. Of course, our top priority is doing DPS, and therefore weapon stats like damage, DPS and speed are going to be the top prio. After that, the hit chance is what we're going to be trying to achieve. Whether we can or not is of course up for discussion. However, the 6% that I'm showing here is the special attack hit cap on the Sunken Temple bosses. And these are seen as being +2 from your level, okay? So we want to try and get there if we can. After that, we're going to go for critical strike chance. This is going to be a 200% amount of damage on our normal swings. And then if we've got our full impale buff, then this is going to be 220%. More on that when we go through our talents. After that, you're going to want strength and attack power. These are not a one-to-one, and 1 strength does equal 2 attack power, meaning 40 attack power would be equal to 20 strength on an item if you were looking at the stat for stat. 14 attack power does equal 1 DPS gain. And lastly, our last stat priority for Phase 3 is going to be agility, and this is going to grant us more crit. Now let's move on and look at the talents and runes that we're going to be using in Phase 3 of SoD. Starting off, of course, in the arms tree. We're going to put 3 out of 3 points into improved heroic strike, reducing the cost of that spell. And we're also going to put 3 out of 3 into improved rend, increasing the bleed damage done by rend. Now, I'm mainly using this so we can get down to deep wounds, which we'll go through when we get down to those deep wounds. 5 out of 5 points going into tactical mastery, retaining up to 25 of our rage points when we change stances. This is very important because we're going to be trying to do something called stance dancing, which is where we go from stance to get the benefits of both. And of course, with this talent, retaining some of our rage, which is our main resource, this is going to be really, really useful. Going down one further, we're going to put 1 into anger management, increasing our time required for your rage to decay when out of combat, especially in dungeons and on packs when you're going from mob to mob, etc., or going up to a boss. This is going to be fantastic. 2 out of 2 into improved overpower, increasing the critical strike chance of your overpower ability by 50%, which is massive. If you don't know what some of these spells are, don't worry, because we are going to go through the full rotation. Now we're here then at our deep wounds, deep wounds, very deep. Critical strikes against our opponents are going to cause them to bleed, dealing 60% of our melee weapons average damage over 12 seconds, which gets a big thumbs up from me. Going one further, Impale increases the crit strike bonus of your abilities in battle, defensive and berserker stance by 20%. Remember when I was going through the stat priorities and I said that normally crit chance is 200%, 220 when you're getting it? Well, this is why. When you've got Impale here, we're going to increase the crit strike damage of your abilities in battle, defensive and berserker stance. So when we have this, we are going to get an extra 20% damage on our crits, which will put it up to 220% damage. 5 out of 5 here into 2-hand specialization, increasing the damage we deal when we've got 2-handers in our hands. Sweeping strikes, this is very good if we're dealing with multiple enemies and want to do AoE. Quite simply, our next 5 melee attacks are going to strike a nearby opponent, and it is on a 30-second cooldown, so we can use it a hell of a lot. That paired with Whirlwind, and boom, you can do pretty much everything you need to in AoE. Going on to sword specialization on the right-hand side, we're going to give a 5% chance to get an extra attack on the same target after dealing damage with your sword. And then lastly, it's going to be Mortal Strike, a vicious strike that deals damage plus 85 and wounds the target, reducing the effectiveness of any healing they get by 50% for 10 seconds, which is amazing. And of course, we now have got 10 more points that we can put somewhere else. I'm going to be going over to the Fury tree now and putting 5 into Cruelty, increasing the chance to get a crit strike with melee weapons by a further 5%, which is a no-brainer, of course. 5 more points to go then. Where are they going to go? I'm going to go 1 down and put them into Unbridled Wrath. Gives you an 8% chance to generate an additional rage point when you deal melee damage with a weapon. And again, another no-brainer. Putting the 5 out of 5 into there is going to take us up to level 50. Next up then, let's look at the runes. First up is going to be Quick Strike on the hands. It's a reckless instant attack with our 2-handed weapon, and it is going to benefit from anything that affects Heroic Strike. So if we click that, don't forget, remember, improved Heroic Strike here, reducing the cost of it by 3 rage points. That will affect our Quick Strike. When going on to Frenzied Assault then, on the legs, we can see that we're wielding two-handed weapons. If you can't tell, we're going for two-handed with this build. Two-handed weapons, your attack speed is increased by 20%. Absolute no-brainer there. It's going to pair very well with things like our two-handed weapon specialization, etc. And is a really strong passive that we can get without really having to do anything. For the last phase 1 rune, it's going to be Flagellation, gaining a 25% bonus to physical damage done when we activate Blood Rage or Berserker Rage. And again, I'm going to go through these when we go through the rotation. These are spells we're going to be using quite a lot, and this is going to give us a lot of extra bonus physical damage that we can output. On the waist from phase 2, it's a really interesting one, which is Precise Timing. And I am loving this one. Basically, Slam is now instant, but is on a 6-second cooldown. Basically, with this, we can just use Slam on cooldown, and that is it. On the feet rune, it's a utility rune, and it depends on if you're being selfish or selfless. Rallying Cry lets loose a Rallying Cry, granting all party and raid members extra health for 10 seconds. Enraged Regeneration, however, heals you for 30% of your health, but can only be used while enraged, Berserker Rage or Blood Rage is active, and you can use it while stunned. So basically, selfish Enraged Regeneration, selfless Rallying Cry. I would say to go for Rallying Cry to help out your whole raid. But of course it is situational. And now for the phase 3 runes of SoD, the really exciting new ones that we get, let's start off with the head. Unfortunately, when I've been simming this, it does not really look very good for us. We can go for Taste for Blood. Whenever your rend ability causes damage, your Overpower ability will activate for 9 seconds or 1 attack, and this cannot occur more than once every 6 seconds. When I've been simming this, it's been coming up as a DPS loss, which is kind of sad to see. But if you think that's fun, you do you. You know, it's not always all about passing, it's about what build is the most fun. So you can go for it and take that if you want. Otherwise, we can use Vigilance, which is focusing your protective gaze on a party or raid member, reducing their damage taken by 3%, transferring 10% of the threat they cause to you. But we're not a tank, so it's a bit like, I wish they had left some of this off. In addition, each time they are hit by an attack, your taunt cooldown is refreshed. This is, you know, much more for tanking, even though it can reduce the damage taken of a party member. Otherwise, there's Shield Mastery, which again, we're not really going to be doing in arms. So the only option really is Taste for Blood on this one. So, I don't know. I'm not that happy, really, with what they've done in Phase 3 with that rune. Some of the other classes I've been playing, we've got some really nice ones, even if they are passive. On Warrior, I'm not too impressed. Onto the wrist rune, then. It's going to be Wrecking Crew. Your melee critical strikes enrage you, increasing the critical strike damage of all your attacks by 10% for 6 seconds, which is, thank God, unlike the other rune we've got here, actually really nice. Again, it's passive, and it just means that we're going to be doing more damage, which is, of course, really fun. Now then, let's put it all together and see how we're going to use this in our rotation in Phase 3 of SoD. One thing I haven't added onto this rotation, which is kind of the pre-pull, is you can use your charge, if you can, to initiate combat, and then we're going to go on to this main rotation. We're going to be staying in Berserker stance most of the time, and then we are going to be stance swapping or dancing a little bit into battle stance for 2 main reasons. One is to use Overpower. It can't be dodge or parried, etc. Can only be used after the target does dodge, but it is on a 5-second cooldown. That's our Overpower ability, remember. Or if we are reapplying our Thunderclap. Don't then use Thunderclap this high in the rotation, okay? If you don't know what Thunderclap does, it does a big Thunderclap, and it's going to affect 4 targets, and it's going to increase the time between their attacks, so they attack more slowly, and it's also going to do some damage to them. But we're only going to use that in an AoE situation when we do actually need to affect, 3 or 4 targets. We're not going to be using that on like a one target situation. There's just no point. Next up, if we're in the raid, which likely you're going to be, we want to make sure we are maximising our Sunder armour. One thing to note here, if you've got the Homonshuli from priests up, the little shadow people, they will actually apply this themselves. If you have got a priest doing that, make sure you coordinate with them, because you won't need to be using your Sunder armour. One of their little shadow people will be doing it already. But if you are using Sunder armour, which you will be if it's not in the situation I just said, then we want to maximise this. It can be applied up to 5 times, and it reduces their armor by up to 90 per stack. And again, that's up to 5 times, but be careful because it does generate a lot of threat. However, it does last for 30 seconds, so once it's up, it is going to be up for a while, which is really good for us. Then we're going to make sure we're using our Demoralizing Shout and Thunderclap to get those debuffs on the target. Like I said, with Thunderclap, mainly using it on AoE. You can use it on a boss as well to get that debuff up, but if it's just like a pack of like one mob, etc., I wouldn't really recommend it as much. Demoralizing Shout is going to reduce the melee attack power of the targets you're using it on, and this is a really powerful one for putting that debuff on your target. The first enrage effect we're going to be using as a priority is Blood Rage. This is going to generate 10 rage at the cost of health. It is on a 1 minute cooldown, and then it's going to generate some more rage over the next 10 seconds. And don't forget, with our Flagellation rune, after we use that enrage, we are actually going to then get an increased amount of damage that we can do, which is 25% physical damage. So using that Blood Rage is then going to generate that extra rage, which we're then going to get even more damage output from because we've got increased damage coming out of us. Coming out of us? That doesn't sound too good. If your Blood Rage is on cooldown and Flagellation has come off, then we're going to use our Berserker Rage. The reason why we want to make sure our Flagellation has already dropped off is because if we use Blood Rage and get the Flagellation buff and then use Berserker Rage, it's going to refresh Flagellation again, which means that we're wasting however much is left of the previous Flagellation. Berserker Rage is only on a 30-second cooldown, so you can use the Blood Rage on a 1 minute cooldown and then use Berserker Rage twice, then use Blood Rage and, carry on like that in that kind of cycle to keep Flagellation up as much as possible. Then we're going to use our Slam on cooldown. Remember, it's on a 6-second cooldown now and it is instant because of our new rune on our, I think it's the waist item, we've got that on. Then we're going to use our Mortal Strike on cooldown. Then we're going to use our Whirlwind on cooldown. Then if we've got tons of excess rage left over, we're going to use our Quick Strike. We can also use this with Wild Strikes or Wind Fury Totem. If you don't know what this is from either a Feral Druid or a Shaman, where basically we have a chance to do an extra attack that also will have 20% extra attack power. So this is a passive effect that our allies in the raid are going to be giving us, but it is very, very potent, especially when we've got excess rage and we can get a few quick strikes out, etc. The chance of getting an extra attack with those can be really quite formidable. And then lastly, we can use our Heroic Strike at really high periods of rage and Execute. Execute is only usable on enemies that have 20% or less health, so it is quite a high priority skill, but how it is on the bottom of this rotation because it's only going to be used at the very end of a fight. And that is pretty much it, guys. That is how you're going to play Arms Warrior in Season of Discovery Phase 3. If you did enjoy this video, let me know in the comments below, and if you do have any more questions or queries, etc. about how to play it, then please do join my Discord because we've got an awesome community who are really, really friendly. You can also join my Patreon. There's a link down below for that, where I share a lot of behind the scenes content. I now write a blog on there, and you can also talk to me one-on-one in there or via the Patreon VIP channel in Discord that I always check all the time. So, if you've got any questions, etc. in there. The one other thing I will say is if you are looking for other class guides, other warrior guides, etc. for Phase 3, once this video is out, you will see on my page the current class guides on the left here. There will be in this shelf a Phase 3 playlist, and if you are looking for retail, etc., this shelf on the main page of my channel always has the most up-to-date guides. If you're looking for the gearing guide for Warrior, that will be out shortly on my channel as well, and will be included in that playlist. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in Phase 3 of Season of Discovery.